Matt Aguilar here from Comicbook.com, and we are here covering San Diego Comic-Con for all things geek. Today, we actually get to talk a little horror, a little awesome monsters here with Guillermo del Toro and Andre Overdahl. Did I say that right? All right, I got those right. Yeah, buddy. Scary stories to tell in the dark. We just had a panel, and it looks fantastic. You guys, I really think this is something special. Now, in the panel, you were kind of talking about like the ribbon stood out as like something that you didn't get a chance to make it, into this story. Yeah. But what was the first story that actually is of this series is the one that like caught your attention when you were younger or whenever you first read the story? Was there one that immediately made an impression from this?
To me, The Dream, that made it into the movie, The Dream, and everybody loves Harold, and it was Big Toe always comes to mind, so those are there. But Ribbon also was one of the ones I wanted to have very much, and you were High Beams, right?
Yeah, and Meet That Active Walker is a fun one, and yeah, there's a lot of good
yeah.
Now, how many? Because we saw 4 characters in there, and including a new monster.
Well, it's a composite, but there's also more things in the movie that are not just in this panel. There's that people that know the stories will recognize. Okay. I won't tell you what, but there's more stuff blended in there.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of little details for the fans of the books.
Yeah, a lot of Easter eggs for sure.
Yeah.
Now, we're just here starting out with this one. We have high hopes. Do you guys already kind of have in your brains a landmark or other stories that you're like, if we get to come back to this world at some point, we would love to tackle those? Do you already have those kind of inklings of ideas already?
I would say maybe. There is High Beams. One's very bad, and The Ribbon I love. I think it's also one of those. The outcome of that story is so memorable, and it's very visual. It's such a great visual gag.
Well, and that's actually something too, because when you're, this series has a lot of fans that pay attention to like those small details. So when you're bringing this to life, what was kind of the most important thing you really wanted to get right? Was it visual style? Was it the humor? Was it just kind of an overall narrative? What was the thing that you really wanted to get right? Because if you don't get that right, then everything else falls apart.
Depends on the story, no? I think rhythm, Andre did that, and the faithfulness to the drawings in the book, to bring them to life in a way that looks like the illustration in the book.
Yeah, and the tone, because there is such a fun, playful tone in the stories, and I really wanted to make sure that the movie also has that. Even though it's scary and intense, you have to sometimes just let that, alleviate that a little bit.
And you have immense experience with Jane Doe and with Troll. I love Troll Hunter. That was one of those I actually random. We were talking about streaming kind of before, and it actually gave me a good recommendation and said, "Hey, you might like this," and I watched that, and it was fantastic. So when you're trying to bring these stories to life, what was kind of the biggest challenge in doing so?
It is making these characters that are black and white drawings come alive in a way that we could really have the fans embrace them, and that obviously is a huge challenge. And I think we were very focused on making sure that they were really based in the drawings, and then we had to do some things because it's a color film and we're not doing it black and white. Yeah. So we had to also do some trickery there to ensure that you have that balance. So it stays truthful to the characters in the books, but still lives in a modern film. So that balance was tricky.
And we got to see the Jangly Man, the newest monster edition. Creepy. It's gonna give me nightmares, so thank you for that. And then we got to see an amazing sequence, I imagine that's the introductory sequence. Will there be more new creations as well as in the rest of the movie, or is he the main new creation?
No. The whole story is new. The entire screenplay is new. It came from the notion of let's do a story of the last summer of a bunch of friends, They know they're finishing school. They know they're drifting apart. They know this is their last fall. Their last Halloween. They already are finishing school. What would they do, and what challenge can we give them? And we came up with the notion of a book that was similar to the book on Pan's Labyrinth, what's called the Book of Crossroads, that writes itself for you. And we said, what if the stories happen to these characters, and each story has something about the way it happens that tells you who that character is, or what that character is afraid of.
And one of the things that is kind of interesting is that, and this is in any fandom or genre, but sometimes when you're growing up and you're a fan of like monsters and horror, sometimes you can have a feeling of being ostracized, of not being normal. Like, that's not a normal thing to like, right? Why don't you like something like this? Yeah. Do you have any advice for like young fans of like the genre and stuff that are kind of feeling that way now? Do you have just any kind of anecdotes or whatever to share?
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's no, I don't know.
I think that everything that you as a kid are told that is a defect, it's actually a virtue, And I think that it's the world that is broken. The model of the world is broken, and I think that the moment somebody tells me not to do something is when I'm much more interested in doing it, and there's a reason for that, and it's called conscience and construction of the self. You grow with two selves: the one that the world tells you you should be, and the one that you really are, and that's the voice you gotta listen to. What I think I am. And you don't have to change the world. You just have to love what you are and embrace it.
And, I kind of brought up Jane Doe and Trollhunter earlier. Those are really interesting worlds. Would that be something you'd want to return to at some point? Like, do you look maybe forward to being able to have the time or whatever to return to that, maybe do another movie in that universe?
I mean, in a way, yeah. I mean, Trollhunter is obviously a world, and
it's a comic now, right?
Yeah, that too. We just released a comic in Norway, which I would hope could be distributed worldwide, for that matter. Yeah. But it's no, I mean, it's definitely a world that could be played with either on TV scenario or as a movie or whatever. And same about Jane Doe, absolutely. But there's never. I mean, Jane Doe was successful, but it wasn't a big economical success, so that was where it, that's where the limitations sometimes lie.
I understand. And, we are Comicbook.com. So if there is, or is there, a franchise or a superhero character that, you kind of look at and go like, I could do a unique spin on that. Does that ever cross your mind?
Yeah, no, I've read some comic book scripts and stuff, and there's a lot of interesting stories out there, but not for right now. No.
Is there a
well, I wrote a whole screenplay, or co-wrote a whole screenplay on Dark Justice League Dark for Warner, so that's your answer. I love Deadman, I love Demon, I love Swamp Thing, Zatanna. I mean, that's a universe. Swamp Thing. I'm very attracted to that side of the DC universe. I think all the darker side, the Kamandi included. I love characters that are not in their pantheon. But I'm not a superhero guy. Yeah. For me to like a superhero, the superhero needs to be a monster. I'm not a superhero guy. I'm not into those things. I've never been. I'm always in favor of monster narratives. That's what I like. Or I love noir. I love police, like crime dramas. I love science fiction.
Absolutely. No, totally get it. And I would love to see a Justice League Dark thing, because Justice League Dark are so many interesting characters. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really do appreciate it. The movie looks fantastic, and I cannot wait to see the full thing. So
Thank you,
check
man.
back with us for more information on Comic-Con. Peace.